Welcome to
What
Let
up?
Loose Dog Talk. I'm Dennis Weber
Ooh.
Bulls. This
Man, my
is
name is I'm Ernest Bowen with Grey Hawk Kennels.
Gabriel Mendez with GM American Bulldogs.
what's up, fellas. So this is our
What's
first
poppin'?
episode, man. So we've been talking about making this podcast for a minute already. Finally, this is our little test run, see how it goes, and we got some interesting things to talk about.
A lot of
Let's
Yeah.
interesting
do it.
things.
All right. Well, you know what? Let's do this first. Ernest, give me a little bit of your background. How you started in this dog business thing, and then we go with Gabriel, just
Man,
so people can know who
I
you
don't
guys
think my
are.
background is a little. I think it's a lot. Man, so I've been in this for a little over 20 years. Started with my Braveheart Bulldogs. It's kind of went from there. Once I realized that about 18 years in, went venture to my own thing. It was created Grey Hawk Kennels, African Bulldogs.
Okay, nice, Gabriel.
Uh, let's see. I think I got my first American Bulldog when I was 13. Man, I wish I knew what to do with it then. But I kicked and screamed when I was a kid to get one. My cousin turned me on to the dogs. I got one. I finally grew up and was able to buy my own dogs. So I did some homework. That's when I met Dennis and some of the other people. Started getting dogs, and we've been going crazy ever since.
Nice, nice. And well, myself, I started in 2015. You know, we started with a female, and then man, just fell in love with the breed, and we started breeding and trying to produce, top quality American bulldogs. So, gentlemen, I do have a question for you guys. Um, Breeding, what methods? Um, how do you breed? Is there a specific way you guys breed? Uh, what do you guys look into when you guys are, pairing two dogs?
You just threw a whole lot into one question. You know that, right?
Yeah, oh, I know that.
That's a lot. So, like
Just color.
method,
Just color. No, I'm
just
kidding.
color. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the best way to go. Is like, yo, if I can get some blues, some lilacs, and some tries, I think that's gonna sell, right? Nah, man. First overall thing is like what I'm gonna look for me is gonna be type, structure, top line, rear angulation, clean feet, clean breathing, and nares. I mean, the
Okay.
overall dog itself, what's presented to me. And then from there, I'm going to look from behind the dog. If what's behind the dog has ever been produced to see if those genetics continue to keep moving on.
Well,
Um,
let me ask you something. When you say behind the dog, most people won't know what you're talking about. Are you
Pedigree.
okay?
Pedigree. I'm looking at pedigree.
Okay.
Not so much as just the pedigree itself. I'm looking at dogs in that pedigree that have bred after, let's say for our example of us, Capo. Um, I'm looking at Capo to see what Capo has produced, and then from there I'm looking at what we know Diesel is, and seeing Diesel still continuing to produce that consistency. And I'm looking in those lines to see, if that's going to really work, it's going to keep going, because that's one thing we really don't have a lot of is consistency. Method of breeding, always female. It's always female, but I like line breeding a lot.
Okay.
Tying in traits and genetics is locking it in a whole lot more. I'm cool with doing the outcross, but I rather line breed and inbreed before I do anything.
Okay. Okay. Gabe, how?
For me, I would say, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no, no. Say, like for you, how would it
Um,
be?
yeah, the same thing, right? The dog, at least, in the look. I mean, we all see the dog that's in front of us, right? That's the first thing we see. You see the mom and the dad, the male, the female, like, oh, look at these dogs, right?
Yes.
And then you kind of look back, like, what's a pedigree? Does anybody have some puppies? Does anybody have a brother and sister? And then you kind of go from there, and depends what you're looking for. Me personally, I think the way I've been going, The dogs are kind of, all around. We do shows, family companions, super athletic, you know, they could breathe, just overall healthy, but good looking dogs, kind of
The eye
like
catcher.
plug and play.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna look good, the eye
Yeah.
catcher, and it's just really kind of plug and play. You take it to the family, and then they're gonna make it, do what it do per se, right? There's
So
some couch
before
potato
you
dogs. Go ahead. And then there's
before we go
some,
on, like I like
show
the
dogs.
temperament.
Yeah, a lot of people, the temperament is, for family or just to have, wherever. Nobody wants to have a liability on their hands, right? Some dog
True
people
that.
like their
Right.
dogs, hotter than others, but the thing I like about the breed is that they're like on and off, right? They could just be kind of copacetic, and then, when they're in those situations, they could change, but just natural protectors. The temperament. I have kids. We have a few kids, of all ages, from young to older. I like to host people at my house. So I got to make sure my dogs can, support that. And they got to look good, right? You want to walk down the
Definitely.
street and people are like, "Damn, where'd you get
Yeah.
that?"
Right.
And you know
Yeah.
what? Gam hit a good point about temperament.
That
Um,
part.
I believe, you have to have that on and off switch on that dog. And just because he said kids, and I'm witness to his dogs that how well they are with kids, because he has a toddler and a what 4 or 5 month old baby, and
Oh yeah,
and
now she's like 9 months, but you've been around her since she was
yeah,
born.
since birth. So you know the temperament of those dogs and the lines that we work. I know them very well because I know the genetics that got passed down to have that temperament. You know, and and I say for Gam because Gam got a lot of his dogs from my lines, and he's worked those lines, and I could see those traits passing down to his dogs from the dogs that I started with.
On that note, like, yeah, you hit that. And like what you were saying, talking about temperament, a working dog and a family dog, that's one thing I like about these lines that we got. Because Feloci's, she's gonna work. She'll work
Yes,
all day. And then on top of that, like she's not an over aggressive dog, like nowhere near. But when it's time, like, hey, somebody around, she on it. But like
yes,
real great. Like, I take all my dogs. I take them all kind of places, all environmental and things like that. So they're very welcoming to people. And like that's one thing I always say is like I need my dogs to know the difference between a friend and a threat. And being
correct.
able to go do the job and work the like go work, but know when to turn it off. And I think in a lot of bulldog breeds, a lot of people ain't focusing on that.
And that is true. Um, like like when I breed, that's what I look at dogs with great temperament, but structurally, genetically health tested. Just because you don't want to cross through a path where you're gonna have hiccups, and then it's gonna be a headache when you realize you have certain, I guess, um, diseases in your lines,
Yeah.
and it's gonna it's not gonna it's just gonna pull you back instead of moving forward. You know,
Well,
it.
Well,
Go
on
ahead.
that, like there's always like health testing is important. Like as most people say, it's not the be all end all. But yet at the same time, let's say if you do have a dog that carries one copy of HUU, how do we
Yeah,
eliminate that? You breed to a dog that's a non-carrier. You know, a lot of people get in their dog and they think they get in, they think health test, health test, health test, and they see one flaw. They don't realize how to correct that, or if there's going to be a problem to breed the dog. You can breed, but you want to make sure you're fixing a problem while you're breeding into a problem, if that makes sense.
correct. Let me ask you this, Ernest, since you brought that up. Um, so let's say, like you said, you health test and you run into HUU, right?
Hmm.
And then I don't know. Can you elaborate? What's HUU for some people that might not know? Was that I know what it is, but
Yeah, like your HUU and what is it? HU, what's our other one? Not CMR,
ICH and
CMR. And
okay,
those are your liver, your kidneys, and skin diseases
yeah,
that your dogs are going to carry. So, and especially while we're producing dogs for family, we want to make sure that we can get rid of all these things and eliminate those because these are pet home dogs. So all your internal what's the word? Your internal complications of your dogs to be able to pass through dietary issues and things like that. That's where you're going to run with your HUU and everything.
Okay. So would you move, like you said, HUU? Yeah, it's kind of like an easy fix, but would you move forward knowing your, let's say, that line carries, it's a carrier of, something like HUU? Like you say, it's an easy fix, but would you rather keep breeding to that, or would you kind of just cool it and be done with that line?
No, man, I can't throw away the dog with the kitchen sink.
Okay.
Like you can always fix and repair, but then when you're doing that, you're gonna run a risk, and the puppy is 50-50 in the litter.
Yeah.
So when you do it, you're gonna have to health test every puppy in the litter. For one, you're
Okay.
gonna hold back for what you see is health tested clear, and
Yeah.
then when you sell those puppies, you're gonna have to be 100% open, transparent, and let your buyer know, hey, the puppy does carry this, and if they are like willing to buy it, give it to them for a lower price.
Do you feel now, like in the market, that some breeders, know certain things in their lines, like that they're carriers of something, but you feel that do they really be honest with the customer, or they'll rather just sell the dog because the dollar is there?
That I honestly I believe here's the thing, and I say it all the time: don't ask, don't tell. And that's what a lot of breeders do. They don't ask and they don't tell. And they lead their buyer into a situation down the line, and the buyer has no idea like what's causing these internal effects on the dog. I think all the time it doesn't matter. You got to be open. You got to be honest. You
Okay.
have to. Like transparency is one thing that does sell. It does. Not the dollar's good, but rapport is a lot better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
because if you leave something out, to the wrong person or just leave it out, I think a lot of that too depends on what's your like end all goal, right? If you're gonna be selling these to other breeders, or if you're gonna plan to be in the quote unquote dog game, right? And then you're messing around with these dogs that are sick, right? Then that could be
Yeah.
like, hey, maybe we shouldn't. But if they're gonna go to pet homes, depending on what it is we're saying that they have, right? Some of those aren't like they're not killers, right? As a pet home, it's not going to affect the dog's quality of life. Now, if they try to breed the dog, right? But if you sell it, hey, these are pet home dogs due to, maybe the quality, or if that, that would be
Right.
part of the quality. What you did if you did any health tests. Um, but yeah, me personally, I would try to steer away. And I do try to steer away as much as I can, especially if you're going to get into like line breeding or inbreeding, just because, just like you double up on the good, you're gonna double up on the bad, right? And then
Right.
it's
Exactly.
like,
Right.
oh,
Yeah.
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
I locked in this type, but I'm also locking in the ick, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And you do the outcross, and then it could come back because then you're like, okay, I did my outcross on both sides. Now we're gonna come to lock stuff in and get it closer, and sometimes stuff hits. That's why some people have, dogs with some blood from, a few generations back. You see the first 3, 4 dogs, and then boom, a litter pops out. You're like, what dog was that?
Yeah.
Where did that
True
come
that.
from? It's like,
Yeah.
what? And then you go back and you're like, oh, shoot, that came out from, you know,
Right.
some other
But
stuff.
still,
So,
at the same time, though, you can have two dogs that are health tested clear, and you can still come across the issue.
oh, yeah, definitely. But at least we're doing our part to,
Yeah.
keep the
To
To
pool,
eliminate
make
it.
it
Yeah.
better. Yeah, yeah.
And the
yeah,
reason,
and then
okay,
and,
so
and then that wouldn't be on the seller, right? Because hey, my dog is clear. My dog is clear. Now,
right,
True.
if down the line you did something else and something popped up, well, okay, but the dogs were clear in front of you. Your puppy
yeah,
that was sold to you was clear. I don't know who you bred it to, right? And then yeah, you keep
right,
breeding the dog. Something is gonna pop. How many times you use it, it
right.
probably will.
So, like for
So,
example, like you asked me that question, would I rid a dog for that?
Yeah.
I had a nice. We ain't gonna bring her name up, but a really nice bitch, really nice bitch, and did the health test on everything. She was HUU clear, but she was an it carrier. But
Okay.
what the bitch brought to the table, the game needed as far as structure, muscle, type, shoulder layback, clean breathing. She needed. We felt the game needed it. But then as further situations went on, she became to be a real hot dog, and that's where for me, health. I can't like health testing is not really. It's not the be all end all. It's a lot more to breeding a dog than just the health. It's structure, temperament, and health. They all play hand in hand. And if you test a dog, for me, if you pass 90% of like what I'm looking for, then cool, we can move forward. But if your temperament, number one, is uncontrollable in my own house, and I know how to handle a dog, that dog won't get bred. Like, because I think that right there, the mental health of a dog is the biggest number one key that we need to focus on.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that. Yeah, an unstable dog, um, it's a dog that bites.
Terrible. Yeah.
And yeah, and if you can't trust your dogs, you don't need to move forward with those dogs.
Not at all. Because how can you build something with no trust?
Exactly.
It's kind of like you get a cop FBI that's playing with a big mafia dude or whatever. They're building a relationship on lies. So
Well,
when you're building that lie, there's no trust nowhere. So if I can't trust this dog's mindset when it's over there and I got my back to you, what's gonna pop
you,
off of it?
you know what? Gam might have a good story of that. He started
So,
with one dog at first. I don't know the lines and stuff where he got them, but he'll be the right one to tell you the difference between that dog and the lines he's working with now.
oh, I can do the same, my boy. Go ahead,
Yeah,
guy.
and that we had to make the choice, whether we're gonna put him in the program, even to sell the dog as an adult dog. You kind of disclose that stuff, but I think that's like a big reliability because that's something more in front. Then the dog has something right that's not gonna ever manifest. They're not gonna breed it. But if you have a dog, he's cute, everybody loves him, color's nice. For the most part, he's good. You take him everywhere, but every so often you'll get some episodes of some weird stuff, and this will want to
So,
bite you, or
so,
you
Gam, let
know.
me ask you this: so, did that dog started showing signs as a pup, or did they progress once he became an adult and he felt like, okay, I'm the one that runs the show?
Like when he started getting older, it was already like after one.
Mm,
Yeah, after one, and he was fine. He was good. This dude was in the bed in the house. He was a good dog with kids and family. And then he just started. There was like little stuff here and there where I'm like, "Am I tripping?" Like, no, okay. And then my girl would call me like, "Hey, this dog is tripping." I'm like, "Is he though? I don't know." Like,
You said,
no.
is
And
he
then
though?
and you have to make those choices, right? They're hard choices, especially you invest in a program or a dog, and you're like, oh, I'm going to use it for this, right? Then it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
now you get into ethics, and then like, am I willing to risk, my safety or my family's safety or
yeah.
someone else's safety over,
Consumer safety,
I
yeah.
mean, a quick buck, right? And then you crash and burn later, and then be like, this dude, even though that wasn't even, I bought that dog, right? But then I
Yeah.
use it
Right.
or I breed it or I give it to somebody. They'll be like, "Oh, where'd you get that crazy dog?" They're gonna say it was me. They're gonna be like, "Oh, we got that from
True.
JM. We got that from Gabriel."
Yeah.
That's and then everybody's just gonna assume that's that. And most of the market is they're families, right? And
True.
or
Yep.
they
Right.
have maybe they see what we do and they're like, "Oh, that's cool," and they want a nice dog. These families, they go all out and they have they want to spend something and nice. So I just couldn't put myself to. It was hard. We had to make some choices and where to put it, and it was just little by little things were just adding up, and then you kind of make excuses for the dog, like, oh well, all the females were in heat, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
caught him
yeah,
off
yeah.
guard. Oh, it was hot. Oh, he was having a bad day. Like how would I like it if someone you know ran up on
Right.
me, come that, and then it's like, okay, there's no more excuses, and then people start feeling uncomfortable, and it's it just becomes a liability. It's unfortunate, but I think if we're honest with ourselves and I think a lot of people
That
probably don't
part.
tell those stories or that side. And they're like, no, our dogs are good. They never fight. They never try to bite it. Man,
You
you
know,
know?
you hit something right on like what I was just about to say. You've been honest with yourself. You know, a lot of people get into these dogs and they want to be, kennel blindness is multiple ways. It's on
True.
structure, it's on health, and it's on temperament. So a lot of people, we love our dogs, we do, but in that love, you can't get blinded by the love by seeing the temperament trait issues and ignoring it like, oh, I can fix it, I can change it. But then you got to realize some of them you just can't change. So you
True.
really got to be honest with yourself, with the dog that's right in front of you, seeing these behaviors happening.
Yeah. And I think that goes even more, even if you're not breeding, but owning a dog,
Owning,
right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
even people, they want to rescue a dog or, they
Yes.
just have a dog and they make excuses like he's small, he doesn't do nothing, and then it's like, dang, the
Right.
dog's crazy, or
Crazy.
if and it's not that dog. You go outside and these dogs are trying to attack your dogs or people, and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, it's
Yeah.
okay, and I'm like, it's really not okay, right? And it's
Right.
like they don't want to. You don't want to fix that, and sometimes you could kind of rehabilitate the dog or whatever, but you know, now breeding is a different story. But I just think keeping any dog like that in your home, if you're
Is
not prepared, or some people might think differently, right? Or they like their dogs hot like that. I mean,
that
that's
different
good with
strokes for
other
different
dogs,
folks.
are
Yeah.
with other people. But for me, if my dog starts, looking at me with the little snarl, you're not,
You gotta
you're
go.
not the
Yeah,
Yeah.
one.
one, you gotta get
You
up
see,
out.
yeah, you see other people, that's fine. You don't like them. I've had dogs before that hate dogs. Other dogs can't nothing. Live animals. That's perfect. Okay, that's good. But now if you have a problem with me, we can't
That's a
feed you no
different
more.
story.
Nah,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
part, that part. If you got a problem with me, you ain't biting the hand that feeds you, my boy. You
Yeah,
can
Yeah.
find the streets.
and-
Yeah.
yeah, and it
And they
sucks,
all
but that's the truth. It's part of it.
and
Yeah.
they gotta realize that you're the alpha. You cannot let
Right.
them feel like they run you, because once you do that, that dog is gonna challenge you every time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
especially with
speak,
these dogs, and they're big.
but
They're
yeah,
over
they
100 pounds.
big.
100. What are they gonna?
And even when
They're
they even
gonna.
when they not big, they're powerful in this themselves, bro.
Yeah.
Because what, Felotti's 74 pounds. Like she ain't ever gonna give me a problem. I can say that, like, knowing. But if she wanted to, bro, it's a hard
It's
dog to handle.
yeah.
And if you don't put your foot down to
Yeah,
the
it's.
dog, yet the dog ain't gonna never respect. Like, since we on setting alphas, let me ask you questions. Let me ask
Go
a
ahead.
question. How do you guys like for placing your way and becoming the alpha of your pack? What are things you guys do to place boundaries in order?
I don't know. I don't think I've ever had to like establish like, hey, this is where we're at. But I think just sometimes it's harder. I think when you have like a pack of dogs, right? Then you really gotta assert yourself because they're looking for that. Like somebody has to correct them, right?
Yeah.
So then you have to be the one. Or like with me, like I know who like my alpha dogs are, and then I'll put them on each other, right? Like, hey, get her, hey, get him. Like we can't do that, and they look at me like, oh shit, okay, we gotta go. Like
Yeah.
this is what we gotta do. But then every once in a while, I mean, you have to assert it too. But I mean, that's a different story. I think. Um, I don't know. You just gotta be with your presence that they know.
Yes.
You gotta put it on them. You just gotta put
And
it
Right.
on them,
the way
and
you
they
carry
know.
yourself to them.
Right. You said you
Yeah,
gotta put it on them.
Yeah.
yeah. So I never had to come out, but I just oh shit, there he is.
But you know what?
Um,
I relate to Gam what he's saying. Because I do have a dog that he's kind of the alpha that I could put him out there and he'll check every dog out there in my yard, to
Oh, we
behave.
know Diesel. We know.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
he at the same time, Diesel knows that, I'm the alpha. So he kind of
No.
he just wants to keep the yard, stable. The girls
Right.
start acting up. He really just got to give a look and they stop,
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I rely on him a lot, especially with when I have, the majority of my program is females.
Right.
And,
My whole program is
yeah, so, So
But
that's why I could relate to game.
you know, my whole program is females, but I got an alpha bitch over here that gives them run for their money.
Yeah, yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
so for me, like I feel it starts like, most people, we're gonna get a puppy at 8 weeks.
Hmm.
I think that when we say we didn't have to, but we did. We did set that assertiveness and place those boundaries because as we're raising the puppy, that's where we're starting it. We're
True.
starting at a very young age. So puppies are realizing, like, okay, cool. I can do this, I can do that, or I cannot do this and I cannot do that. We're setting those boundaries and we're setting order for the dogs. I don't plug my light. I got to plug my MacBook in or this mug. We done for.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're correcting them when they're small. What they can do and jumping and that's part of that because if they were by themselves or when you see them play by themselves, that's what the mom's gonna do. To them, and then you just
Yeah,
continue that like, hey, we don't do that.
You
right.
follow that direction. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
you
then you
keep
know
that
what?
order.
Yeah. And then these pups, you get them at 8 weeks and stuff. And then they imprint in you, so you have to show that alpha, and make
Yeah,
sure you correct them, especially when they're pups, because once they start growing up, they follow, those directions, and
right.
they're like babies. They're like a sponge. They absorb everything you're trying to, teach
Everything.
in there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, they're
Hey,
gonna like see what you let them get away with,
exactly.
and they'll go for it. Like
one second.
whatever you allow it, whatever you allow to happen, they'll do that. So it's cute when they're small, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, then
Yeah,
they
true
start getting
that.
30 pounds, 40 pounds. Then they're like, they're adults, and you're like, hey. Then it's harder to like pull them back,
That
right?
is true. Yeah. And
Yeah.
like I know you have that alpha dog, but in my situation, it's a male. You have a female, right?
Oh yeah, Daisy.
Yeah. Hey, but
Yeah,
she followed because she's a daughter to Diesel, so her temperament
yeah,
is almost it's almost exactly like his.
yeah. No, they're super similar, and in all of that, and it's good to have her because, I mean, she keeps it, everybody calm back there. Like last night, they got out. Weta got out. Little puppy got out. And I just gave her a look. I was like, Daisy, go get her. And she got
Yeah.
her and she chased her back in, like, go on your side of the house.
Yeah. See.
But, and she just has like a different temperament. She likes to chill. She's more like cool, like, hey, let's hang out. And these guys
And
want to
that's a
do some
dog that
backflips.
has that on and off switch. You know, uh, she's willing to please, but when she feels there's a threat, she turns that on. That switch it's on, and she's ready to kill. I've
Oh,
seen her, and she's
fast.
a big girl.
Who, Athena?
Oh yeah, she don't
No,
play.
Daisy.
She gets right.
Oh
She
yeah.
gets right in front of me, right between my legs.
Oh,
No
Yeah,
nonsense
Daisy.
coming
Yeah.
around. And when the kids go out, same thing. She does like circles around them so they can keep walking.
yeah.
Um, and that's just natural, She just
And see
that's what she
that's
wants
the
to do.
that's that temperament too that we talked about. These dogs that trait gets passed down. Generation
Yeah.
after generation.
That's that mental.
Yeah,
That's one
Yeah, and
thing.
then it's
Like
natural and can't teach that stuff.
yeah,
you can't.
exactly. Yeah,
You can't like that those mental things and those temperament things. Like those are things like even like we pick up things from got traits from your mom and your dad and the things you do. My mom used to tell me all the time, "You just like your daddy." She right. But your dogs will pick up and those traits will trickle on down as well. Like, hey, it is. You got to keep a key like an eye on that while you're breeding these dogs. Like, hey, what temperament do I really want to pass down? And when you're
yeah,
coming into this, like as we're saying, like where our methods of breeding, what are we breeding for is another thing. What are we
yeah,
truly breeding for? And me with my program and probably you guys as well, but I have working dogs, but I need a family dog. And my number one thing is a natural protector, like a
yes.
guardian dog that really knows, like, hey, you my boy, you cool. But that dude came in, he semi cool, but I don't really know
I
him.
don't trust them. Yeah,
Yeah, because what most people don't realize, that most of the time when somebody break into your home or any of that stuff, it's somebody you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want my
And a
dogs
lot
to
of
really
times,
know.
even if they don't go all the way either, like that's enough.
Yeah,
Trust
like
me.
just
You see
alert me,
they
you
coming at
know.
your ass, you're not gonna just keep coming. You're gonna be like,
Right.
what?
Yeah, right.
It's not worth it. Is she gonna follow through? Is she gonna bite me? I'm not. If I was gonna break
She
into a
got
I
house,
gotta
teeth,
find
bro.
out. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would go next
And
door. I say
right,
I'm gonna go. The people that have no animals, right? I mean, why
right.
would you make it harder on yourself? And
Facts.
that's
Like,
what
you can
most people want. Family. That's what they want.
yeah.
True.
And it works.
That's one thing like with all my buyers. Like I tell them this all the time. And I really like most of the time like talking to the men. We're our number one job is to protect our home, and that's our number one thought every day when we leave the house. My
Yes.
kids good, my wife good, my girl good, her kids good. So I tell all the time when I'm selling puppies, especially with men, hey, you when you want to be at home but you're not at home, you want to make sure that your house is good. I'm 9 times out of 10, man, this dog's gonna hold it down for you.
Yeah. That's true, guys. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. No.
that's what I think we all want. At the end of the day, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Some peace of mind.
That part, yes.
Let me ask you guys something. I know we talk about breeding genetics. What do you guys think the importance of dog shows? What Ernest? What do you
Um,
think?
I think with dog shows, there's a lot that's important. Number one is socialization of the dog.
Okay.
You get to put the dog in different, like all different environments, and people think like environmental plays a lot of things, especially when you're going to brand new surroundings. Your
Yes.
it's building confidence in your dog to like
Yes.
build confidence within herself or himself. Different sounds, different smells, different dogs, different people. I think that's one of the things I find like really great with dog shows. But then being in the ring, it's eye opening. Which people, whenever they're up against another dog, they never ask. Like say you take a dog, why did I lose?
Yeah.
They don't. You want to ask those questions because that
Exactly.
judge will tell you. Maybe the tail wasn't long enough down to the hock.
Yeah.
Maybe there wasn't enough turn to stifle. Maybe your shoulder layback wasn't there. Maybe it's a short upper arm, aka higher in the rear. Or your
Yes.
dog's movement and gait just wasn't there. So it's got a lot of education that you can pick up at a dog show. So it's helping you open your eyes to the dog and what's in front of you and you're holding. And I think those are real key things about a dog shows. Learning that structure, learning what to improve on in your breeding to open your eyes up to what your dog's flaws are.
True. True that. And I believe that as well, it teaches you, to kind of follow a standard to the dog. You know,
Yeah,
because that depending on different registry have different standards for, let's say, the American Bulldog, but most of them are just exact the same. They might just tweak a word here and there, but the standard shows you what really you want to breed towards.
right,
You know,
right,
but
right.
you
Yeah, and
did.
then you see how close or how far you are, right? Was good feedback. Like, Ernest said, like if you ask, right? Some people don't ask, but if it's always good to ask, after, like, hey, what happened or what can, and a lot of times they'll tell you, right? Depending the registry, some judges, are just people there. It's kind of intimidating at first, but once you get in there, and it gives you confidence as well, and you build like a connection, with the dog,
Yeah,
right? Like when you're there with the dog, it's different. Like you guys, just like any work, right? You take them to, any kind of shuts in, or you're doing some bite work, or on the table, or you're building some kind of bond with the dog, and it's different. For those little moments, it's different. But I think it's a good gauge on where you're at, especially if you want to breed dogs. But I see a lot of people pet homes, or we've sold dogs to people, and then they take their dogs, and then it gives them like, damn, my dog, the dog that I got, is
right.
actually really good, and people like him. And the guy's been, like selling dogs or breeding dogs or judging dog shows for 20, 30 years, and just some family bought a dog that they thought was cute, and their dog has ribbons, and
It came out to
I
be
mean,
a
it
banger.
and that's cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Not a breeder or nothing. You
but
just have a
that but
badass
that's
dog.
have But that's hats off to the breeder though. Like you gotta think about that. Breeder did the steps to get that dog structurally and like that wow factor and the structure there. And then that buyer went out and like, dang, I really see what's really happening right now. And that's an education. Let's say if it's you, for example, that's a hats off to you to where you're not only teaching a breeder, you're now educating the masses of the pet home. So where the pet homes in or can be able like, hey, so if they see somebody like, oh, I'm gonna breed this dog, yada yada. Well, you know that it's easier for them to talk to somebody than it is for us.
Yeah, you get
because
the people.
We're brutally honest
like
with it.
Yes, yeah, and it's true, man. Honestly, you know, I could say, Gam, you know, bought a dog for me, and I invited him to go to the dog show with me. You know, like let's go just so you could get the experience, see what it is about and stuff. And you know, he took his dogs out there, and I showed them for him. And the dogs did very well. Then I felt like, you know what? You see what I'm doing out there. You know what? Give it a shot. I was like, just because I was trying to create that bond with his dog, but to break him out of that barrier that, oh man, I don't know what I'm doing, because that's how I started. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing when I was in the ring, you know, but I asked questions, and then, you know, now it's a natural thing. You walk in there, you know, and depending on how you get there, the dog feeds from you. So if you're nervous, the dog is not going to perform right either. You know, that's why. And, you know, Gam did it, and I was coaching him from the sidelines, you know, and I was telling him, relax, because once you relax, the dog is going to relax, and it's going to show what, you know, the dog really is. And, you know, he did very well. Now, you know, I compete against them and shit, and you know, we be in the ring together, and he's showing his dogs, you know, and like he mentioned, you know, I usually invite pet homeowners to come down, bring their dogs. I'll show them, and at the end they leave happy because they left with a ribbon. The dog won best in show or whatever it is, and I give them all those ribbons to, you know, so they could kind of show off to their friends, like, look what my dog did, you know?
Right, yeah.
And
that's like super
and that's
cool.
You're just like, what the heck? That's not, you know, people, that's not a normal thing, right? Like people get ribbons, or like you have a dog, and that's not a normal thing. And you ask a bunch of people that aren't a part of this, their dog's never done anything, you know? So it'd be like, hey, I did this with my dog, you know? Right. Or my dog did this, right? I don't know. My dad took him somewhere. He came back with all this stuff. You know, that's you know, that's kind of cool, right?
Like Fido did what?
I didn't even know he could do that.
Right.
On Gam's first show,
and when they first come, they can't do that. Dennis is in the corner doing some magic, and I'm like, what happens? And in 5 minutes, and they like, what the hell? Even the owner's like, that's how it was too. I'm like, yeah, she's not gonna do that, bro. So I'll be back. Just go right there. I'm like, okay.
I remember you telling me about this.
Enough.
I remember you telling me about this. Yeah.
And then I showed her for the first time. Man, I didn't know. I was fucking wearing some basketball shorts. My pants were falling down. You know, I was a mess. But, you know, after that, you know, a few more times, it was, you know, it was and it's, you know, you never been there. And most of the people been doing it for a long time.
Right?
So it's not like it's rare, you know, every once in a while, like as I went with shows with Dennis and I, like, you know, it progress, and then we kind of bring somebody else out, like, hey, you should come, you know, hey, you should come. Like, are you sure? I don't know. That's how I was. The first show I went, I just watched. I just went, you know, I didn't even take no dogs. I just went, and I'm like, let me see what you guys do here, you know? And then little by little, and then after that, it was on.
Yeah. And his first dog show that Gam showed his dogs, his dog won best in show, right? So they owed him a trophy, but they didn't bring it. And we're like, so they brought, I think it was one that they just had as a, you know, to show off. We took a picture of it, and they were like, oh, we're going to mail you yours, but Gam never got it. So, you know, these dog shows, like I said, at the same time, you can network in there. But at the same time, you see dogs on the internet, because I'm a person that likes to put hands on dogs, you know. And
it was like a different date.
Yes, these dog shows help, you know, see that. You really see the dog in person, but what you see on the internet, because the internet might lie to you and be like, man, this dog's impressive.
Really?
And then you see them in person, and you're like, is this the same dog? You know, and so
Hey,
I
and
think
let me
that
ask
was up.
you, hey fellas,
We can't hear you.
I think I lost you.
Yeah, we can
hey,
hear you,
hold on,
Ernest.
hold on. Hey, are you guys lagging
I,
No.
I'm getting a little here and there, but
while like transporting?
come back to
That's
us.
Hey, can you hear me now?
I could hear you now.
I can hear you.
You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's wild. That's crazy. Can you still hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Like, okay, I think it was lagging on my end, which is weird. I'm connected to the Wi-Fi, you know?
Hey,
Yeah.
you had a
But
question you
I'm
were
still
gonna
with it.
ask?
I heard everything. Who, me?
Yeah, yeah.
Man, I don't remember. I was stuck on the lag.
Oh, okay.
But no, you were
No,
talking about the trophy and everything. I was stuck in that, like,
okay, no, yeah, he, they owed us a trophy and stuff. We never got it, but that dog won best in show. Uh, but like I said, these dog shows help as well to see other dogs that you see in the internet. You're able to put your hands on them, and see what it is, and you'll be able to network with different breeders that you only know from the internet. Now you know them in
right, right.
person, and you guys could work together, whatever it is, and it's not only these dog shows are not only to compete, it's to establish a friendship and and be networking with whoever's out there and stuff. So,
Yeah,
but at the same time, it's a good place to show off your dogs, so you could,
right.
people see what you're working with and stuff.
Like
Yeah, 100%.
on that part right there, let's we were talking about breeding. I got a question. Like, do you guys like starting with your male or your female first?
For what?
Breeding.
As far as
I
to
started
start
off
the
with
program?
female. Yeah,
Yeah.
to start. Yeah, female to me are the
Yeah.
key to any breeding program. Um, they're the ones that carry the most genetics, influence the offsprings.
You think it's
Yeah.
what
That's the
about?
foundation.
I think I agree. Like I'm on the same boat. I think the female is the most like the stronger part of it. Like you don't. So like, what about like you don't think what part do you think the male plays whenever you're breeding into your female?
The male
They
brings to the table, depending on what it is, whether they're there to fix certain flaws, but they'll I believe they bring the size, the bone, even the head. Um, but as well, you got to look at both ends, because you can not only depend on the male to carry on, the offsprings and stuff. Your female has to be equally
They can
matched or even
they,
better.
they can
Yeah.
work
Yeah,
miracles.
that's
Yeah.
that's that's
Yeah.
the part, because people want to get a stud and it's like, oh, this is a stud. I'm like, well, that's not gonna
Mm,
fix anything,
And you have a mediocre
right.
Um,
female. Yeah, yeah. A lot of people do that. They look for the best stud, but their female is not so bueno. And you're like, don't expect that male to fix everything on that
Right.
on that offsprings. And then you question,
yeah,
hey, your male suck. He can produce for shit. No, it wasn't that.
Right.
It was your female.
yeah,
Yeah, but I still think at the same time, like like when I'm in my mind and when I'm thinking of asking this question, a lot of people get into this and they think like, oh, I can buy any female, and I'm gonna go find a male, and they jump on the hype and like, yo, I'm gonna get this male, and I'm gonna produce X, Y, and Z. I'm gonna make X, Y, like X amount of money, but those puppies turn way out, like nowhere near what they expected or what we knew wasn't gonna be. But I think if you're gonna go pick a male, if you don't have a strong female, that male has to be known to reproduce and really can add to it. So where you can at least get 30, 40% of what you're looking for.
True that, but
yeah,
here's to that. At the same time, you have a female, but you got to know how she's bred as well. Because if you have a female that she's nice, but let's say her pedigree is scatterbred all over the place, but she's that
Yeah.
1% female that you're like, man, that's a beautiful female. But then you compare her to her siblings, and she don't look nothing like that. And then you get a
Yeah.
male that as well. He's a nice male, but pedigree scatterbred all over the place. You breed those two. Don't think you're gonna get consistency in that litter. You might get one or two pups that you're like, man, these are nice, and the rest you're gonna question yourself like, why does this one look different than this one? This one looks different than this one. So,
Yeah, and that's why that stuff
genetics.
matters because it
Yeah,
takes us back to that. You know, be like, well, where does this dog come from? And there's
Right.
probably dogs if you look, you'll find it like, oh, they look exactly like the great grandma did, right? Or
Yeah.
great grandsire. It's not always
I have a
a good thing.
picture to pull up, guys. Here you go.
Ah,
That's
hold on. Let me,
consistency right
Baby
there.
D's,
yeah, yeah. Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me. Oh, whoa. I got one for you. Oh,
triplets.
here.
See,
Let me get.
it's
I
sire,
was just about to bring that subject up.
grandfather. 3 generations there, but look at that consistency. It's in there.
Here, I got one. I just checked your
Yeah.
messenger because I was about to send you one also. I was about to get on that subject.
So, the dog in the bottom, that's Diesel sire. That's the dog that made me go overseas to purchase Diesel. I didn't produce Diesel, but I loved what that dog is or was. Um, but it was not only him; it was the breeders program that he had this
Right.
consistency and look of his dogs and that's what that drew me to go overseas and purchase that dog. Um, and then we started breeding Diesel to certain females, and they produce, and we're continuing his line. And like I said, Gam, you know, works with the same lines I have, and the results speak for themselves. There's Baby Diesel. That's why his name is Baby Diesel.
Twins.
Well, let me,
Well,
um,
triplets right here.
yeah, go ahead, guys. I'm gonna try to pull this picture you sent me, Ernest. If you guys want to still elaborate on, scatterbred pedigrees and consistency.
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. You got to look at you know. I mean, it depends how far you want to go, but you can't expect it to be just with the two dogs you see. Yeah, maybe they're beautiful or badass, but you know whatever's behind them will definitely come out sooner or later.
That's true.
So you got to make sure it's consistent and that type is there again. A couple more times to get that. I mean, especially if your end game is to continue to produce a dog.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you're one and done, maybe it doesn't really matter, right?
True.
In
Yeah,
your
yeah.
goals.
That's true. That's why, like I said, you always, you use these tools that you have, with pedigrees and stuff. You kind of study the pedigree, and you go from there. See how the dogs are bred and stuff, and if there's not a lot of diversity, and you see what you like what you see back there, then I think you go for it and you match these dogs as well. You got to see what the dogs in front of you as well. So
Definitely.
we lost Ernest. Ernest is my book guy, so he's out.
Ernest, it was nice talking to you, sir.
But I think we got a lot, Gam, on our first episode here. You know, let's continue this. Bringing more information for the public. And see where this takes us.
Yeah, no, I think this was good. It's productive. A long time coming. So, like you said, let's see where it takes us. We'll do it again.
Yeah, definitely. Well, appreciate it, brother. Thanks for having us here. And, we'll try to do it, every week on Wednesdays. So catch us up. We don't have a time exactly yet, but